Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Calvin Sharps, and I'm the VP of Business Development at PIXALATE. PIXALATE is a leading provider of ad fraud monitoring, marketing, privacy, and compliance tools. Today, we are presenting a webinar on CTV and ad fraud prevention, specifically where it comes to helping Amazon DSP customers protect against that ad fraud. I'm joined today with Amit Shetty, VP of Product, specifically on our ad fraud platform, and myself, Calvin Sharps, again, VP of Business Development. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. We will answer as many questions at the end of the webinar as possible. Let's go ahead and get started. So here's a quick agenda. We just met PIXALATE. We will talk about ad fraud types with CTV and mobile. We'll talk a little bit about PIXALATE and our MRC accreditation. We'll look at the supported devices that we support through this integration. I'll do a brief tour of how to enable it inside of Amazon DSP. We'll also talk a little bit about how you can try this for free for a limited time. We'll have a Q&A section and then we will move into the end of the presentation. So in an effort to help reduce invalid traffic across connected TV, mobile devices, and display supply, Amazon has integrated PIXALATE's pre-bid filters, ad fraud blocking filters, into the Amazon DSP on their demand-side platform. As we know, ad fraud is a very big deal. There's about $200 billion spent in 2021, according to ANA. And according to Juniper, they were estimating about $59 billion was lost to ad fraud this past year. So PIXALATE as a company is squarely in the middle of helping to protect and stop those bad actors from getting that money and being a part of that bad ecosystem. So I'll turn the time over to Amit. Amit will give us a little breakdown. What is IVT? IVT and ad fraud are synonymous, and we'll start to talk a little bit about the different types.
Thanks, Calvin. Yeah, that's exactly right. IVT, which stands for invalid traffic, is synonymous to ad fraud, partly because ad fraud is a very specific definition that has a connotation of intent, and IVT helps kind of generalize that to all sorts of non-human traffic, if you will, that really needs to be thought through. And there are two types of IVT as per the MRC and tag definitions, GIVT and SIVT. GIVT stands for general IVT, general invalid traffic, and SIVT is sophisticated invalid traffic. And even though it may seem like one is talking about fraud while other is talking about just general crawlers, that really isn't the case. It is more a question of the kind of algorithms, the kind of processes that are involved in detecting that kind of traffic. So general invalid traffic basically consists of routine methods like filtration by lists or other standard parameter checks. Comparatively straightforward mechanism for detecting GIVT, and there's a range of types of GIVT, whether it's known bots and spiders, data center traffic, but also looking at just user agent headers and basic kind of basic set of things that we can quickly and easily detect. While sophisticated invalid traffic is basically using a lot more. They're more difficult to detect, and you really use advanced analytics and a whole bunch of different mechanisms to really identify. And if you go to the next slide. Actually, I do want to point out that the reason why this is important is that it is a $59 billion problem, like Calvin mentioned. And it really is something that that you need to think about across the industry, right? And that's the reason why players like ourselves, vendors like ourselves, Pixalate and others are in the space. It is a real challenge that we got to work through. And if you go to the next slide, it gives you a little more context around the kind of things that we do to solve this problem, right? So basically, we are a market leader in IVT determination in the industry, and we use this whole range of technologies and algorithms to determine, to take the signals that come in and really, process those. Apply, whether it is machine learning or analysis of different graphs, a whole range of models that look at the behavioral patterns, look at user as well as publisher and seller patterns, look at the supply chain, all those kind of things, and really have a superior risk rating, if you will, around IVT detection. So basically, a lot of thinking and really processing that goes into trying to figure out what is IVT and across both SIVT and GIVT. On the next slide, Calvin. And this is I think, a good representation of the size of the problem, also in some sense, right? So basically, these are the set of IVT types that we can protect against for our customers, and all of these IVT types are aligned with what the MRC and tag guidelines specify. But if you think about, I'm not going to walk through every single one of these, but it is important to know that there are these wide breadth of IVT types that you got to be thinking about, whether it is thinking about bots and the crawlers that might be coming through, or whether you're talking about IP obfuscation or stuffing and spoofing of devices. Another area that's actually I think that Pixalate does really cool work, and just in terms of the detection algorithms, is around click fraud, and the kind of analysis that we do around matching the clicks to impressions, and being able to detect various types of fraud, whether it's video click or fast clicker, and a whole range of different things around that. All of these are pretty interesting set of types of IVT. The one area I did want to emphasize a little more is the suspicious publishers section that you see there, and that is something that I think that we do a pretty important, interesting set of analysis around. It goes beyond just looking at just the traffic directly, but also looking at other vectors. Like, for example, I think the defaced app is an interesting one, where we also look at apps that have been removed from the App Store for a whole host of reasons. And we found that there is a correlation between some of the apps that have been removed for a number of reasons, and source of IVT. So that's another reason why we have those kind of things too. Calvin, any other things that you'd add over here?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is kind of just the breadth of different types of activity, not only that's out there, but is being traced and tracked. So a lot of people, have a tendency to think that, some traffic is just, search traffic looking at my site. Others may see that it's, bad actors, but there's a variety. You can see 40 plus here of ways that people can infiltrate and hijack the session to and apps or whatever is happening. So just describing kind of the breadth of the situation, and knowing that there's a big portion of the money that's being spent in digital advertising that's being siphoned off by these schemes and scams is why we're here and why we're talking about this.
Yep. And to that point, continuing on that thread on the next slide, I did want to highlight the MRC accreditations that Pixalate has. We have MRC accreditations across a whole host of categories. I think we were one of the first to really start getting accredited, and also I think we might have one of the broadest set of accreditations across the board. Also wanted to emphasize the CTV and SSAI related accreditations as well. I think we were on the first to be accredited on that front as well, and we have a pretty wide breadth of capabilities on that front. All of this is to basically emphasize the depth of our capabilities in terms of IVT detection and really being able to use all this as part of a core platform, but being able to use it across the products that we have. Right. So we have three main products. One is the analytics dashboard, where we look at the post-bid traffic and determine IVT. The second is the MRT, the media ratings terminal, which is where we can look at apps across CTV and mobile and also domains, and really understand the metadata around those sources, and more from a planning point of view. That's the main use case around that. And then the third is the data feeds that we have, that is again built off of the intelligence that we have gathered. And on the next slide, Calvin. And actually, Calvin, do you want to take that?
Yeah. So at the beginning of January 2022, Amazon DSP clients now have the opportunity to protect their ad campaigns when using Amazon DSP with PIXALATE'S ad fraud blocking technology. And we do this across IPv4, IPv6 addresses, identified as generating invalid traffic. Also down to the user agents, identified users generating invalid traffic. One thing that's unique to us is we do apps that are delisted from Google and Apple App Store in the last 6 months. We'll get into a little more detail on this in a minute. And we also exclude impressions delivered to the devices identified to be fraudulent or invalid, and also apps and domains identified to be generated invalid traffic. So as you're using Amazon DSP and you're using third-party supply, which is what we call programmatic or kind of open web, and you're off of Amazon properties, Amazon.com and IMDb and others, this method of adding these pre-bid filters helps to prevent the fraudulent activity. In theory, what it should do is give you better traffic and more validated traffic, and increase, not only your return on ad spend, but your AO costs and click-through rates. So this is important for us to look at, and Amit will talk a little bit more specifically why we feel we have an advantage of using our pre-bid block list here.
Yeah, and I think these three are, and by no means are the only advantages, but I did want to emphasize these three areas because we believe that this is something that is important for our customers, and we've seen a lot of interest around this as well. The first is, of course, SSAI and the CTV related intelligence. And basically, we've put in a lot of effort in being able to detect and really understand the devices and the bundle IDs and so on across all these different platforms. So we have a pretty broad breadth of coverage across Fire TV and Roku, of course, but also the other platforms that you see listed over there. And this also ties into what I mentioned earlier about our capabilities around SSAI, right? So the kind of IVT that we can detect across CTV and SSAI has been very powerful, and that has resulted in a lot of the and that's the reason why the data feed that we have in the Amazon DSP is very rich, because we have gathered that data across all these different platforms. The second thing that I did want to emphasize here is the IPv6 side of things. IPv6 is something that is growing in importance in the industry. I think so. The IPv6 is obviously the next step from IPv4. The idea being that you would really want to have a much broader coverage in terms of addressability of devices. And as we have IoT devices coming through, we really have a lot more devices that need IP addresses. What does that mean for our industry? The main implication, I think, is around mobile and CTV. So if you look at, we ran some analysis across across the traffic that we see, and we found that the IPv6 adoption has actually reached that point where it is pretty widely adopted, both in terms of residential internet service providers and definitely on the mobile side of the world, right? Especially with the 5G rollout, IPv6 is definitely becoming a big thing. What that means is that it is important for everyone in the industry to be able to target IPv6 device endpoints explicitly also. The additional thing that we do is a patented technology that allows us to map from IPv4 to IPv6 endpoints, which gives us a lot more broader footprint around the endpoints that need to be blocked also. So that is a key thing that I wanted to mention there. Delisted apps, I will not belabor that point. I think it is an important differentiator. It is, I think, something that only we have been focused on, if I understand right. And again, this is a data feed that we provide on the Amazon DSP as well.
Yeah, the most important thing to think about in the delisted apps is about 20% get delisted in any given quarter from both the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Roku just recently announced that they were starting to delist some apps, and they had an article a week or so ago about that. What happens is when an app gets delisted, it is still on the user's phone and is still acting like an agent. So if it gets delisted from Apple or Google, there's still an opportunity for ads to be served to those particular mobile apps and CTV apps if they're still being used and utilized by the client. So making sure that these we don't speculate why they were delisted, but the fact that they've done some sort of violation of terms, they're out of business, whatever it happens to be. We feel that those are bad actors. Did you have something to say, Amit?
I don't know. I said it's a signal. It's a signal that something is to be looked at on that front.
That's correct. So it's important that you're eliminating that inventory out of your when you're doing your campaigns. So what's important is to look at what we support in terms of devices. So again, we look at over 40 plus IVT types that we described a few slides back. We also see 9+ million connected TV and mobile apps. There's about 60,000 connected TV apps in between the two stores. There's roughly 5 million active apps and about 4 million plus that we have tracked that are delisted. So there's a potential for quite a few of those delisted to be there. We also see signals across 300+ million CTV devices. We monitor 80 million, number of websites. 2.5 billion mobile devices, and between IPv4 and IPv6, we see 2 billion unique addresses. So these are what we support, and when you're using our pre-bid filters on Amazon DSP, you'll be looking at this is the breadth of what the supported device size looks like. So we'll get into how it's very easy to use this inside of Amazon DSP. I'm sure if you're a user of this, you're very familiar with these screens, but you'll be inside of a campaign in the campaign manager. And under the line items, you would click a new line item to be created, which is at the campaign level. After you've decided and selected your inventory sources, so there's an inventory section, you can select, Amazon, IMDb, Amazon Publisher Services, but you can also select third-party exchanges. There's roughly 21 in there that have availability for targeting. You can also then go into the targeting section and add targeting. This is how you turn on our pre-bid filters. They are not on by default, by the way, so they need to be turned on. So you click on add targeting, you'll see this section that says third-party pre-bid. You click on the change button there, and you will get a section with several different vendors that provide pre-bid third-party selections. Under Pixalate, you can go ahead and select our section, turn on the targeting to exclude impressions identified to be invalid in these different sections that we talked about a few minutes ago, and you click done. That's as simple as it is to when you're running a campaign to turn us on and start using us for to remove your invalid traffic. Now, one thing also to mention is by using Amazon DSP, you can now select these pre-bid blocking to design these 40 types of IVT. And for a limited time, it's free to try. So we encourage anybody that's running campaigns to go ahead and turn this on. And for the next quarter-ish, there'll be the ability to try this for free. After that time, there will be a nominal CPM fee that will be added, but at this point in time, it's a kind of try before you have to buy situation.
So a good way to shot.
Well, yeah. So we'll turn it over to the question section. That's it for the bulk of the presentation. One of the questions I see is, does Amazon, actually have ad fraud on their systems? And when we look at this kind of in depth, the reason we're here is because of the you're going out into the third-party supply, which is off of Amazon's off of their owned property, so Amazon.com, IMDb, etc., and their publishing services. So this is a way to protect us, or protect you and your campaigns in that savings of quarter to half quarter 25% of your budget going to ad fraud.
And also, I think it's also important to note that things like crawlers and so on are something to factor in as well, and we'd be able to help with that, with those kind of requests too.
Do we have any other questions? Well, we have somewhat of a silent crowd today. So this webinar has been recorded. We will be sending out that recording to everyone that signed up and showed up for today's. If you have any specific questions beyond what we had today, feel free to reach out to us and marketing@pixalate.com. And we will be happy to answer those questions. I appreciate Amit's time today. Thank you very much for describing the issues and problems with IVT and ad fraud. And if we don't have any other further questions, we'll call it a few minutes early here, and wish everybody a good and happy day.
Thanks, everyone.